To be or not to be? It's a simple question, but one that applies to so many things when you really think about it, and one that could apply to many things with regards to our society. What do we want to be or not to be? Being proactive, I think, however, is the answer to that question, whichever direction you go. Sean Michael Small here on Talking Point once again to have the important discussions of the day. We have a potentially packed show, some things to get into. I have a clip, I have a question, I guess you could say, coming out of the conversations with PM. However, it's not actually with regards to anything the PM actually said. It's something to do with what the local government minister had to say. Curiously enough, you know, not everything he said was bad, but there was one thing that I do want to highlight. But we'll get to that later on in the show. Of course, we have Opposition Senator Jayanthy Lakshmiya, hopefully will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. But to start things off, of course, there's some important things to get into. Some, of course, is a continuation potentially of important stories that we have been monitoring for the last couple of weeks. And to get to those stories, we'll start off today's Daily Review. And the first story to get into, of course, it's the Salary Review Commission's recommendations. Recommendations that had a lot of the country in an uproar. How could they? It was said. I mean, hell, I said something similar, but the point was always, and maybe this is a point that I did not make well enough, and I did not give enough emphasis on to an appropriate level in order to frame this whole thing properly. These recommendations came from the SRC. The government technically did not say what it was going to do, so whatever we want to cynically believe the government wanted to do, hoped to do, might have done, they didn't actually do anything. We can't necessarily punish somebody or legislate or have jurisdiction over thoughts and what-ifs, right? Or even to some extent intentions. Of course, usually, once you start the ball rolling in a direction and you are involved, then maybe intentions might come up if things have to get technical and legal. But now the government has come out and said, nope, this is not good. We are not doing it. But how they framed it, ironically, just as I'm saying, I should have come out and said, or reminded people more, that the government actually has not said anything about this yet. So to say that they are doing the increase is technically incorrect. Again, we don't know what the intentions were. We don't know what the plan was. That's all speculation. And remember what we said yesterday, unreasonable speculation is not good. So they've come out and said, no, we're not going to do it. But how they said it was there were a lot of anomalies in the report. And some of the anomalies pointed out to by the Minister of Finance, right? In surprising increases, like with the leader of the opposition and the court executive administrator and the registrar of the industrial courts and the chairman of regional corporations and the chairman of the Public Service Commission, whose part-time salary has increased by 41%. Now, with regards to some of those other salaries, I can't remember what the numbers were. Of course, the leader of the opposition, it wasn't necessarily a small figure. It wasn't stupendously large either, but the increase was. And I get that. And as I read it, the writer of this specific article, I think all the papers did report on it, but at least the writer of this specific article, he framed it well, I guess you could say, because I actually started to think of the very next thing that he wrote, which was, Mbe did not talk about the proposed increase in the Prime Minister's monthly salary from 59,680 to 80,000 in the report. And as they were pointing on the anomalies, I was thinking, yes, it's very interesting that no one that the Minister of Finance is pointing to, at least in that quotation, because it's a quotation, was a PNM Member of Parliament. Now, granted, the MP salary increases are relatively smaller, so they didn't get as much attention. The Prime Minister, of course, got the biggest attention. And that was not included. Which then makes me wonder, again, to what extent is the minister basically admitting by omission that the government did not necessarily have an issue with increasing salaries more than 4%, thereby sending the indirect implied message to the various public servants and unions, etc., etc. Oh yeah, we are not really standing with you, right? We're more important than you. You all just take that 4% and like it. We want something more for us because, you know, us. That's the implication of how it was framed. And maybe sometimes with communication, you don't necessarily have all the time to say everything that you need to say. And sometimes also in the moment, you forget certain things. You get caught up maybe, or you only really consider it from a singular perspective, and you fail to address it from other perspectives, and it leaves your messaging kind of incomplete. And the incompleteness, of course, we don't know how you would have completed it, so it looks bad, disingenuous, negative, like this, right? Of course, the Chief Justice also had some concerns more with the process, which I appreciate more, to be fair, to the Chief Justice. I believe there's a list. One of the daily newspapers listed out his objections: opaque in the SRC's methodology, replete with internal inconsistencies, devoid of justifications for its recommendations for the higher judiciary and other judicial offices, premised on flawed, misleading, and in some cases plainly wrong assumptions. And I mean, if he's going to make such a specific claim like that does venture to the realm of being concerning to me. Formulated based on the application of irrelevant, unreliable, or unexplained considerations, and the product of fundamentally flawed processes that fail to adhere to basic principles of natural justice. Now, at the end of the day, I don't know all of the details of what the Chief Justice said, although he is making very specific technical claims, but not necessarily detailed claims with specific examples, at least, you know, in the list. But I could appreciate that more than the Minister of Finance approach, because again, the issue that we had was regardless of how it was founded, because they had people who came out and said, we understand that people should get salary increases. We understand that the Commissioner of Police, a lot of people should get a salary increase in the public service. To be fair to the demands of the types of jobs when done properly, I'll just add in that caveat there, we assume that it's done properly. There's still some benefit of the doubt I'm willing to give to public servants. Or rather, these salaries are for the office. So the individual performance of the various office holders should not necessarily be the determining factor of the salaries granted to the office. Rather, the expectations of the office should be the determining factor for the salaries, and then we are supposed to hold those office holders to those expectations, to that standard, and that's where we fail in our end of the equation. Now, like I said, it seems as though the Minister of Finance does not want to address the fact, and I could be wrong, maybe I missed it, but does not want to address the fact that the public was not against salary increases, and in most cases were not necessarily even against large salary increases like what was recommended. But what they were against was salary increases to that extent now, when you just told all the unions 4%, and you're still telling people 4%, and you're probably going to want to tell the port workers, hey, that 12% that technically you think you negotiated for and got signed off for, yeah, we can't do that. Don't mind that it's back pay from 2015 or something like that. I can't remember exactly, or 2019, right? Yeah, we can't do that right now. it's not as though the port workers, anyway, let me get into that. The long and short is, the bad optics is not helped by this response. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why many public speakers and politicians are confused and frustrated when they feel as though they can never win. The problem is, usually, they feel as though they can never win because they don't actually know how to manage crisis communication, situations that might be controversial, because you are leaders of the country. And to some extent, it is not too dissimilar to just being a leader in a smaller group, like your political party, like your party group, like your clique, whatever, however you want to, define it, or whatever levels you want to go to. But once you become leader of the nation, now you need to understand you're never going to get the popularity of all the people unless you have a stunning, charismatic personality or heavy-hitting credentials, right, that could rally everybody behind you. But when you do things that doesn't really rally everybody behind you, and you don't have such a charismatic personality, and in fact, to some extent, you go counter to that. You make statements willfully to make yourself unpopular with subsections of the population. You're going to have people who are not just going to agree with you. And then you need to be more careful with your communication. But unfortunately, we are just like lawyers, doctors, teachers, technically nurses, etc. Despite the fact that we have shortages of some of these things, specialty doctors, we do probably have shortages in teachers, nurses, right? But we're graduating a ton of them. But we're not really making use of the education system to meet with the shortfalls, to diversify the type of doctors we have, etc., etc. There's a lot of deficiencies. Just like how there are too many lawyers and too many doctors, at least in general. We have a lot of public relations people being graduated from courses from various institutions, some of whom, because I am in the process of one of those courses, so one of those programs has some of the best and brightest young people on average that I have seen, right? Business school, General students, But these communication students, they're smart, they have reasonably good judgments, they're quick-witted, Okay, then they might not be perfect because they don't have experience. Some of them do, though. The long and short is, many a times, their advice is potentially ignored by those who think they know better. Except those who think they know better speak publicly and then are confused why people don't like them, are confused why they're getting criticized. So, I mean, it was in Parliament. I believe the minister might have been answering questions, or a lot has come out of Parliament for the last couple of days, that's why. But okay, they rejected it, so at the very least they did what was necessary. It's just that they would have helped themselves and improved their leadership stock and the perception that the population has of them if they came out and said, whoa, in these trying times, we cannot, in good conscience, accept more than 4%. But, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe Mr. Pittivali will point out and tell me, no, they did say that somewhere. And I just missed it, and that's bad on me. But unless someone tells me that I did miss it, or I find it after the fact, this is my stance, my opinion on the matter right now, how it was framed by the Minister of Finance, I think it leaves the door open. People can see that. People could see the fact that you're not necessarily going to use this opportunity as a moment in time to stand with the other workers who you're asking to deal with hardship. No, you want to leave the door open so you could get ahead a little bit better. I mean, to be fair, that's how the unions do it too. They don't want to give any ground, even implied, right? They can't even make suggestions. It's always give us more, we concede nothing. That's their negotiating position. So to some extent, I understand that. But I already have an issue with most of the unions anyway. It's not like I see that as a positive. But it seems as though our society cannot get beyond the monkey see, monkey do copycat mentality. That's a very human trait, I get it. But being a leader means rising above, not conforming to the norms. All right, let's move on to the next story. Actually, yeah, let's move on to the next story. The Prime Minister has something very interesting to say with regards to the SSA probe. I believe he was being questioned. Dr. Munal Rudilal had a specific question, and there was some stuff going on in the House. I don't want to get into it. But I think the Speaker asked Dr. Munal to repeat his question. So this is the, I guess, final question that was quoted in the press. Prime Minister, are you aware or have knowledge that retired Major Roger Best, head of the SSA, is the subject of any police investigation or inquiry? And then he was asking if is that question clear, paraphrasing that last part. And the Prime Minister responded, it is very clear. I am not prepared to discuss confidential police work with you or anybody. That's called tipping off. Now here's the thing. Is that called tipping off? Why is that tipping off though? Because this is what happens. Law enforcement has an investigation. Criminals are aware of the investigation. If someone spills the beans to the criminals, hey, you're being investigated. That's tipping off. You tip someone off with information that they don't already have. Now, to some extent, you've put Mr. Best on administrative leave. This is not a drug sting. This is not surveillance of organized crime. He's put on administrative leave. He's not going about his day. When you have a drug sting, you don't, arrest the gang leaders and the drug lords, and then, yeah, we're not going to actually let them know that we're investigating them. You put him on administrative leave, you don't replace him, but you effectively replace him with somebody to act in the head and to, at least in the public, do due diligence on certain aspects of the entity that he was supposed to be running. I'm pretty sure he's already tipped off. So who is it that you don't want to tip off? Because if it's not the person involved, that's it. There's no tipping off with anybody, right? And so I wonder, is this from the Prime Minister's own thought process, or was he given this advice? Because I'm very certain retired Major Best knows something's up. He knows that something's going on. He knows that police was there at the SSA. And to some extent, he probably was made aware, to some extent, of what is going on, more so than the rest of us. So if whatever he knows at the bare minimum that his day and the plans that he had for this week were shut down because he can't do it because he's on administrative leave. So who are you tipping off? If he didn't know that he was being investigated, if he didn't know that he was being surveilled, if he didn't know that potentially maybe wiretapped him, if he didn't know that potentially put an undercover in his office to kind of get a sense of what was going on, if he didn't know that you had police looking into various aspects of his life and the people around him who may or may not have been hired in a disingenuous manner or in bad faith that broke protocols of how you hire somebody for an important position that has access to confidential material like those who work in the SSA. If he didn't know these things, then revealing to him in any way, shape or form would be tipping him off and give him the opportunity to, I don't know, hide evidence, cook the books, whatever. But he has been placed on administrative leave. So he has been essentially tipped off that something is up. So the Prime Minister's defense, I find, is kind of interesting. I would love to know why exactly he thought this made sense. And to some extent, unfortunately, maybe it's lazy. I always try to apply the saying, don't attribute to malice what could be attributed to incompetence. Incompetence does not, I don't mean incompetence in the insulting manner that most people expect it to be. Incompetent in the sense of, no, you don't have the competency in whatever various aspect or sub-aspect of the topic. And in this case, Well, I already said politicians are bad with communication, right? And two of our callers were not impressed with the Prime Minister's conversations with the PMs, 1 hour soliloquy, diatribe, whatever you want to call it, right? Rant. And I do think that this government and the various agencies, they hide behind, we cannot speak about ongoing investigations. But there are things you could speak about with regards to ongoing investigations. There is information, and it's how you present the information. One of the stories that I want to get into, but we're running out of time, one of the stories that I want to get into, in fact, I'll probably go into it. Let's go to the third story, and I'll link these two things together. The Prime Minister also said that the name of the boat owners is not necessarily evidence, right? This is with regards to the owners of the barge and the tug with the oil spill off of the southeastern, eastern coast of Tobago. But the fact of the matter is, the public doesn't need evidence. Not all information is evidence. That's the point, right? You just said it there. What Dr. Monilal was asking previously with regards to the SSA, he wasn't asking for evidence. He wasn't asking for all of the facts of the case. But at the very least, a police investigation, I'm pretty sure retired Major Best kind of knows that police are involved. He could put two and two together. One would hope the technically current head, because he's on leave, he's not replaced, the current head of the SSA would be able to figure out things. He has enough information, he's smart enough to figure it out, right? If he's not that smart, then maybe he shouldn't be head of the SSA to begin with. But I do think that he is that smart, therefore, you're not fooling anybody. Now, back with the oil spill, the Prime Minister said, info on owners, not evidence. So first of all, if the info on the owners is accurate, then yes, it's not evidence, but that's the persons you go to, whether it's criminal or civil court, in order to seek restitution. And the thing is, it's unfortunate that a newspaper did show you up. Now, they had outside help, but you are supposedly the government, the National Security Council, the Ministry of National Security, all of our border security apparatus is supposed to have some sort of partnership arrangements with various international organizations, including those of the United States with regards to regional security. So maybe you did get all this information and didn't want to reveal it, but how you manage crises in order to inspire confidence in your population that you have a handle on things is important. And I said this off air to several colleagues. When things happen in the United States, what do we see? We see the head of the police of that jurisdiction speak. Maybe a technical expert with regards to what's going on speak. We see the local political leadership speak. We might see, depending on the scale, and the scale is national, somebody on the national level speak. We might get, now, we have a technical about the disaster itself, right? Then you have a technical about the cleanup. You'll have like 5, 6, you'll have a 3-4 hour presentation potentially. Maybe not so long, maybe like 2 hours, right? 2-3 hours, where you'll have multiple people speaking for like 20 minutes at a time or more. It will be long because of the amount of information given. It won't be the be-all and end-all of the situation. It doesn't mean that everything is wrapped up in a tight bow, but they will cover all the bases. They will inform the public of everything they can, including what is necessary for the public on a practical level to know in order to move forward. And what it does is, at the very least, it instills confidence that, hey, these people, they have a grasp on what's going on, and we could trust them with this situation. Because they're already pointing out, this is all the things we know. This is all the things we suspect. This is what we believe. And then when done right, you also couch that with, but we'll be following up on this. We don't necessarily have evidence for that. So the situation is fluid, it might change. We'll be hunting down various leads, etc., blah, 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 blah. A name is more than what we got from the government. And a newspaper provided us with that, in conjunction with another news agency, not with a national security agency or international security agency or somebody else, a foreign security agency. So again, to some extent, to be fair to the Prime Minister, this is somewhat nitpicking, right? It's not as though the whole situation fell apart because of these decisions, right? The actual practical matters at hand are not necessarily affected by how the Prime Minister communicated in these two instances. But what is affected is the population's perception of him, his ability, and the ability of his government to deal with these situations. And you might not necessarily agree with me or understand what I'm saying, but a lot of it is subtle. And a lot of it will be expressed by the opposition who have a bias against him, right? The opposition supporters. But it will also take root in moderate voters. It just will, especially when it keeps adding up. And some of the cynics might go too far with their opinions and might be unreasonable with their speculation. But they're going in that direction because that is the foundation laid by the level of communication by the people involved. And that's why too many people don't like you. And notice what I said. I said too many. Because a lot of the time, the irony is, it's not as though, as I said, the practical matter of hand is not that affected. You haven't actually done anything egregiously bad with regards to treating with the issue. So people should not really dislike you because of how the issue is being handled in its totality in the long run. But in the moment, in the short run, and to some extent even in the long run, how you communicate it and how you manage the expectations of the population who you signed up to lead. Not dictate, not manage from on high, right? But to lead, not be an overlord, not be a parent that could only say, do as I say, not as I do. I don't have to explain myself to you, although you've practically said that at some point or another. That's not what you signed up for. That's not what any politician signed up for. MPs are representatives first, members of cabinet second, and Prime Minister third. But, hey, that's just my opinion. Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to highlight something from the conversations with the PM, not anything that the PM said. And then afterwards, we should have an opposition member of the JSC, because this whole SSA thing, that's a whole next situation, right? We'll get into more practical aspects of the matter. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Hi everyone, this is Wendy Fitzwilliam and I invite you to Woman Power, a wonderful show celebrating women on International Women's Day, March 8th at Napa. Won't you join me? So looking forward to seeing you there. Tons and tons of amazing, fabulous woman talent. Mwah.
I am the whole blinking market.
The countdown has started for the most entertaining ladies event ever. Get your tickets for Woman Power.
Who run the world, girls? Who run the world, girls?
Under the patron of Senator the Honorable Donna Cox, the network of NGOs is proud to invite you this Friday, March 8th, 7 p.m. at the luxurious Napa Auditorium. Enjoy powerful and talented divas like Nadia Batson, Bonnet Bickford, Carol Addison, Nisha B, the Xavier String, Kareen Ashe, and a special guest performance from Neval Chaitler. And the host of this esteemed event, the 1998 Miss Universe and still very beautiful Miss Wendy Fitzwilliam.
This girl is on fire.
Tickets for Woman Power this Friday at Napa are $300 reserved and $250 general admission. And they're getting scarce and getting scarce. For more information, call 678-7549 or 491-1802. This is Woman Power.
They go keep their money, I go keep my honey and die with my dignity.
Welcome back. And the conversation with the Prime Minister, even if you think, a lot of what these politicians say is nonsense, it's still valuable to listen to what they say and how they say it. Now, the Minister of Local Government, he had some contributions to make. One of his contributions was regards to municipal policing and how it could affect crime. And I think he was speaking to some extent with regards to San Fernando, but also on a national level with regards to the municipal police, local government throughout the country. So let's hear what he has to say. There was one part which made my eyebrows raise. You could hear it for yourself. It's time to cue this.
Just very quickly on the municipal police, we're about to launch our data app, which will tell you where every single municipal police car is at any moment's notice, everywhere. And that way we have response time that will tell you you're 7 minutes out, 6 minutes out, 3 minutes out, 2 minutes out. We've grabbed the data to show us the daytime versus nighttime disaggregation, and we will be launching that by the end of March. This is a radical transformation in patrolling using technology. And the second thing that we're doing, which the mayor of San Fernando has agreed to, we're installing cameras at all public buildings because we amended the Evidence Act so that you don't need witnesses again. The CCTV can be the evidence for you. The third thing that the municipal police will be doing, which we will launch very shortly, is that we will be putting out mobile patrol units, mobile huts, as we do every carnival. Just across the road here, where you have a standing mobile pump post, we'll be moving from post to post. So the municipal police, in conjunction with the Minister of National Security, we're about to give you some fantastic products, which is part of local government reform.
Now, mobile posts for more police patrols, that's not necessarily new. It is welcome, though I think any community would like a more visible police presence. Now, the second point, with CCTV to be evidence without the need for any other witnesses, right? It could be evidence alone. I think that's important because a lot of people, I believe, underestimated the value of CCTV evidence in the past. And the reality, from what I understood from various law courses that I took, so take it for what I say with a grain of salt, it's not that simple, right? And the fact that there's a decision to now make it more readily, usable by itself, I think is a good thing, depending on the quality of the images from CCTV cameras. Cheap cameras, not so good. But the first part, though, let's run that first part again. We've cut that clip out. Just take a listen to it again.
We're about to launch our data app, which will tell you where every single municipal police car is at any moment's notice, everywhere. And that way we have response time that will tell you you're 7 minutes out, 6 minutes out, 3 minutes out, 2 minutes out. We've grabbed the data to show us the daytime versus nighttime disaggregation, and we will be launching that by the end of March. This is a radical transformation in patrolling using technology.
Now, radical transformation. Here's the thing. It's not entirely clear what the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development was meaning. Did he mean that this is an internal app for the police service? Because if that's the case, you don't really need an app, right? Now, maybe an app is the cheapest way to implement this, but also technically it could be more complicated because you have to develop the app, and I don't know if there's an off-the-shelf app. And then, of course, if it's an off-the-shelf app, you have to ask questions about the security of the off-the-shelf app. More on that in a minute. But you could have monitored your positioning of your municipal police officers before. This is not a revolutionary capability. Maybe how you're doing it is, slightly evolutionary, but it's not revolutionary. This is not necessarily adding something new. Monitor the position of people. No, technology more or less has various devices to allow that, which could have been, garnered before. Now, again, maybe it's an app through the phone, so it's cheaper. But that's an evolution. That's not really a revolution. And the minister not being clear, I think it's unfortunate. But it is what it is, right? But you see, the thing is, because he's making it into such a big thing, we have to ask, and I hope this is not the truth, but we have to ask, and again, I don't think this is the truth, but when he said that an app was being launched, is this app for the public? Is this app for the public to give the public the ability to know what police response times are, municipal? And is this apt for the public to know the positioning of municipal police? Because yes, on some level, revealing that information to the public would be revolutionary. The problem is, while there is value, don't get me wrong, for the public to be aware of these things, the well-intended public, the non-criminal public, a public app would reveal that information to the criminals. Now, this is why the minister needing to be clear is important, because the messaging that he gives has all of these questions up in the air, and it leaves me hanging, because I don't see revolution if it's done as an internal thing. It's an evolution, right? But the capability was always there. We don't need an app for this. So, you know, I mean, you probably should have implemented something like this sooner, earlier. But hey, it is what it is. I'll still be happy for improvements, even if, you know, they're arguably late. But because the door is open, there is the second scenario, which is alarmingly bad, shockingly bad. And again, on a practical level, that might not be the truth, but perception, because of the incomplete messaging. Minister Al-Rari, yes, he's a good talker, charismatic personality. That doesn't necessarily mean he's a good communicator. And unfortunately, too many politicians on both sides of the aisle and other parties suffer from this lacking. And the real issue is not that they have the lacking, it's that it seems as though they are not willing to get the help they need to make up for those deficiencies. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will welcome the senator. Stay tuned. Talking Point will be right back after this.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Hi everyone, this is Wendy Fitzwilliam and I invite you to Woman Power, a wonderful show celebrating women on International Women's Day, March 8th at Napa. Won't you join me? So looking forward to seeing you there. Tons and tons of amazing, fabulous woman talent. Mwah.
I am the whole blinking market.
The countdown has started for the most entertaining ladies event ever. Get your tickets for Woman Power.
Who won the world, girls? Who won the world, girls?
Under the patron of Senator the Honorable Donna Cox, the network of NGOs is proud to invite you this Friday, March 8th, 7 p.m. at the luxurious Napa Auditorium. Enjoy powerful and talented divas like Nadia Batson, Bonnet Bigfoot, Carol Addison, Nisha B, the Xavier String, Kareen Ashe, and a special guest performance from Neval Chatler. And the host of this esteemed event, the 1998 Miss Universe and still very beautiful Miss Wendy Fitzwilliam.
This girl is on fire.
Tickets for Woman Power this Friday at Napa are $300 reserved and $250 general admission. And they're getting scarce and getting scarce. For more information, call 678-7549 or 491-1802. This is Woman Power.
They go keep their money, I go keep my honey and die with my dignity.
Welcome back to Talking About, ladies and gentlemen, and I am joined by Opposition Senator and member of the Joint Select Committee on National Security, Jayanti Lakshmi. Senator, good morning. Thank you once again for being with us, because something, it seems as though just when national security topics couldn't get more fantastical, something new popped up this weekend, and the Joint Select Committee wants to have a session on it. So thanks for joining us, because I'd just like to hear your thoughts on it.
All right, thanks again for having me. There's never a dull moment in the field of national security. It's one of the reasons why I kind of like it, but it also troubles me greatly, because I think crime is really the greatest challenge being faced by citizens in this country right now. Today, I glance the newspaper every morning while I'm making my daughter's lunch and breakfast. I skim through the newspaper, and two things troubled me. The ransacking of a home and murder of a very elderly lady in Valsayn. And then I heard that the chairman of the board of West Shore Medical was also attacked in his home and was beaten. And I want to say that, my heart really, really goes out to citizens of this country, all citizens, but I mean, particularly when you're dealing with elderly people, persons of over a certain age. It really breaks my heart, and I feel for them, and I feel for the children and relatives, because I too have elderly parents, and I feel very, troubled by the state of affairs that we're in. And what we're looking for right now is really a massive movement and shift in the government's crime fight to deal with these issues, to cut down on the home invasions and so on. And instead of that, we're getting bacchanal. We're getting bacchanal within agencies. We're getting conflicting reports about Coast Guard vessels and their ability to patrol the waters. And we know that leads to the influx of guns and drugs, which spirals into, greater violence. There was a time when someone, I'm not saying it was better, but I mean, with a home invasion, people might come in, they have a cutlass, they tie you up, they take up. Everybody has a gun now. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a gun. And every time we raise the issue of guns, we hear from the government that they're auditing FUL files for legal firearm holders, and that is their focus, and that remains their focus. So we have a spiraling situation right now. And intelligence and the ability of an intelligence agency to assist in the battle against crime is critical in modern 21st century policing. And instead of that, what we have is the removal of a person. The reasons being proffered has to do with some church and a pastor and random hiring things, HR issues, it would seem. And, I find that to be very, very troubling, because this agency is the agency that is supposed to be tracking the movement of the guns, monitoring the gangs. They have an exceptional amount of power. And when you think that this is what they are doing, and this is what they ought to be allowed to do, we are getting all sorts of reports now about, I don't know, that they've been just hiring people. What have they been doing? And reports about the number of interceptions and so on conducted by the SSA have been slow in coming. I think they were a couple of years backlog, and some of them were late in Parliament and all of that. But we have to question the usefulness of this agency, what they are doing, and how they are operating. But more than that, we have to question whether or not these sporadic actions by the government, whether it's not really fueled by something else, and if there isn't, something is rotten in the state of Denmark or Trinidad and Tobago that is causing these actions on the part of the government. Because if we cannot have faith, trust, and confidence in agencies clothed with so much power, this is an agency that can ride roughshod and bypass your constitutional rights, that Parliament allows them to conduct interceptions. The head, the person who removed, we're not talking about a lower level employee. This is the actual office holder who has the power to authorize an interception of your private communication. And if the government is saying that that person can be removed overnight after some emergency meeting, they claim to have information from the police, and then we're hearing things about hiring a pastor and a picture of somebody being posted up in a church, we really have to wonder what madness and what state of madness we are in. And that is why I think, and that's what prompted us to immediately, when the media reached out for a comment from members of the JSC, I said, they must appear. They must appear and answer questions. The government must appear through the Ministry of National Security, the minister himself, and I think other officials even the Commissioner of Police, if it is that this decision was based on information from the TTPS, they must appear and answer questions. And then we wrote to the chairman requesting an urgent meeting. And I think that request has been supported from what I read in the media by the only member of the independent bench who also sits on the committee, and that is Senator Paul Richards. So I'm really hoping that meeting happens soon and that we can get some answers on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, one of the local newspapers, when reporting on your desire, members of the JSC, to have, have the I guess the people involved, the pair, right, with regards to this whole SSA situation. One of the reports included a national security official anonymously kind of stating that the reasons given were a red herring. Now, I don't necessarily think the reasons given weren't potentially true or can't be true, but I also do wonder to what extent, if it's not all to the story, so to some extent it is a red herring, because what you said, the results of what we see with regards to national security just seemingly is so insufficient to the challenges that we face. And I believe there was, one of the things that came out on the weekend also was the recommendation for the Border Security Agency to remove enforcement from customs. Those the reporting on that recommendation also included a lot of statistics that kind of just doesn't really show the various arms of security in a good light.
The statistics paint a very, very worrying picture as to the state of affairs. I don't necessarily agree that we need a separate agency, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The funding and the deliberate running down of agencies which enjoy a certain amount of protection in terms of their hiring and firing and their control from the political directorate is something that this government has embarked upon. They did it with, that's their justification for TTRA. BIR is inefficient. BIR cannot collect taxes efficiently. Customs is inefficient. They cannot do these things efficiently, etc., etc. They have under-resourced, deliberately in my view, under-resourced these agencies and paint them in a very negative light in terms of their performance. And then the solution being put forward is that we must form a separate agency, but those agencies come under direct control of a minister, which is what TTRA is.
Well,
and I don't agree with that, because customs enjoys a certain amount of protection,
yes,
where the controller of customs is a person appointed by service commissions and so on. We like to criticize service commissions for their efficiency and so on, but why are they so inefficient? Is it a resourcing issue? And who is under-resourcing them? And this came up several times in the parliament, because there was one independent senator who called for us to disband service commissions. Service commissions are what insulate public officers from political interference. And we're losing that now with the TTRA and a border security agency, depending on what format it will take. I'm not saying that we don't need to perhaps restructure, we don't need to look at different things, etc. But when you have agencies that come under direct control of ministers, on boards being appointed by ministers at their sole discretion, you lose that political insulation of persons who wield a lot of power. That's what the SSA is. Now, the SSA head, because they have their own legislation, he has a certain amount of authority, but he's also under general direction and control from the minister. That's there in law. It's there in the Act.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, with regards to
we have a lot of issues to work out there.
With regards to the border security issue, my main concern was, yeah, we could kind of transfer the responsibility, but it seems as though it all comes down to budget. Customs is undermanned, and it's undermanned, and the levels, as was in the reports, already might be insufficient. So it's not even, undermanned to a sufficient level. It's undermanned with the allocation being already insufficient. So you'll just kind of transfer the resource problem.
Yeah, I remember sitting and thinking that I would just fall off my chair in a JSC meeting when we were told about the scanners at the ports that were not working, and that customs has only manually checked like a very small, I can't remember what the percentage was like a very small fraction of the number of containers that have been coming in. Why is that? Because we got some scanners donated, they passed their useful life, they can't be repaired, they've been packed down, and they have now started the procurement process to get new scanners. So we have left our ports, our legal ports of entry, basically open, unmanned, unchecked for a number of years. And I said it in the parliament, and I saw everybody looking at me in horror, and I said that every murder that occurs in this country with a gun that entered through one of those legal ports of entry, the blood is on the hands of the persons who refuse to get our ports properly manned with a scanner that could scan containers, because this is widely known that the guns are coming in through containers at our legal ports, and illegal ones as well. And that's a Coast Guard issue. But we can't even, we need a whole day to talk about the number of issues with the Coast Guard, their vessels, and the patrols. We saw it with this oil spill issue. We're seeing it again.
Yeah,
with respect to the red herring issue,
okay,
let me just say very quickly, I do feel, because I'll tell you this, I've worked in the public service, I've worked in the private sector, and if you have allegations of nepotism in terms of hiring, granted this is a very high-level security type agency, I would think it is very far-fetched that such urgent action and police involvement and all of that would take place with something like that without a proper investigation, without that you would go so far as to remove someone with that much statutory power for interceptions and so on, based on some questionable hirings. So I think that there's far more to the story than that, and I don't know if it's a red herring or if it might just be scratching the surface of what really took place. But that's, again, if people are being hired who weren't qualified, who weren't suitable, and who ought not to have been in that agency, sorry, what type of access did those persons have to sensitive information of citizens, of members of the media, members of the government? We don't know if it is that it's even that people were in there and spying on members of the government, because these things can happen.
Yeah, I think one of the things we need to remember is it's not just elected politicians. They're also senior public servants who, at times, they might have their own fief carved out that they use the rules to protect, and they push back even against the government of the day and are not necessarily aligned with the government of the day. So there's all of these complications on a case-by-case basis. But I understand what you're saying, because I was also going to go there. I mean, it might seem obvious, right, that perhaps the agency stems from the fact that there was a much more serious situation than what has been revealed so far. And it could be connected to this whole pastor and family members hiring, right? It could be a similar situation that isn't actually connected, and this is just the thing that they could safely reveal as an excuse to kick the ball rolling. Or it could even be just the general state of national security currently, and the lack of results, to some extent, maybe a scapegoating the guy because we need to figure out what's going wrong. Or maybe, again, there were deficiencies caused by his tenureship. But how it's unfolding, like you said, with the agency, it leaves us with a lot of questions. And the Prime Minister's statement of not tipping off, I found, well, hey, Major Best, he's more or less tipped off that something's going on. So I don't know who you're trying to not tip off with regards to answering if there's a police investigation or not. That
tipping off thing is really just a very poor excuse for the Prime Minister. I thought he would have come better than that. I mean, I don't have much the highest expectations of him and his national security minister, but I thought that they could have come up with something better than that. So that's one. But secondly, I would say this. If it is that, let's just say, best case scenario, the situation was that a head of the SSA chosen, selected, and installed by the government, who dismissed illegally, unconstitutionally, and in violation of his rights, dismissed the last head of the SSA, Bisnath Raj. So install this Mr. Best. And Mr. Best has run amok and abused his situation in his position to hire relatives, pastor, friend, whatever it is, spiritual advisor. Then the government still has to answer for it. That's the best case scenario. The worst, another scenario is that people who ought not to have been in the agency were there and either conducted or had access to intelligence and information that they should not have had, and that something happened with that sensitive information that agency collects, and it went somewhere or got somewhere that it ought not to have gotten to. And that too is a very frightening situation, which ultimately the buck stops with the ministers and the cabinet, the National Security Council. They have control, and they have to take control. And if they either taking control, just firing someone, bringing in somebody else and putting them there to act in the position, and then say, well, I can't tip off the public. That really is just poor, because the public deserves to know. At the end of the day, the SSA, and let us not forget, when the partnership government came into office in 2010, what they found was an illegal agency operating without any legislation whatsoever, conducting illegal wiretapping on members of the opposition, members of the judiciary, members of the trade union movement, members of the media, The media were the subject of, many members of the media were subject to illegal wiretapping, and they had absolutely no statutory authority from a bill passed by Parliament to say this, that you can do this. The structure of the SSA was put in place in 2010 to deal with those things because we recognize the need to have that power. We now have 3 people authorized who can authorize wiretapping, right, an interception.
Yeah.
One is the head of the SSA. They've now fired this man for some sort of irresponsibility, if they say so. This is the person you install, and this is what you're saying he's done, right?
He's not fired technically.
Well, suspended, and they have an investigation and an audit taking place, which some people say might just be a witch hunt to get rid of him. And the fact that people are raising that issue sort of tells me that somebody knows something that they just can't say just yet. But I need to find out more about it. There's the other person is the Commissioner of Police, who was appointed and recommended by the Service Commission when she only had two months or something left at her tenure, and now the cabinet is taking a decision to renew her contract beyond the age of retirement, and so she is, in my view, beholden onto the cabinet for her renewal and for her position. So that's the second person, and the third person is the Chief of Defence Staff, who technically does report to, in a way, the Minister of National Security. These are the people who could conduct wiretaps and who could authorize wiretaps. What is happening within the SSA right now? What has happened? How many wiretaps were authorized by Best and his spiritual advisor, pastor, people who ought not to have been hired? What took place? What access they had? Where the information went? These are questions that, at least, if it cannot be made public because it is sensitive and it's an issue of national security, at a minimum, I believe, as members of the Joint Select Committee on National Security and parliamentarians who have been close with the authority to represent and to inquire into matters that affect people, we ought to be able to get that information and to inquire into it and make some recommendations going forward, because this situation cannot be allowed to just pass by, and we have to stop this 14-day memory that people have in Trinidad and get distracted by the price of doubles and KFC and ignore the big issues. We have what I think is an ecological and environmental disaster taking place in Tobago. And never in my entire life have I heard that it could take up to more than 2 weeks to find out who's the owner of a vessel that has been traversing the oceans.
Well,
that is the most shocking thing to me.
It took a news agency 1 week, so I think.
Well,
I think.
And I mean, and I cannot believe that we are giving the government a free pass in this absolute, something as critical as this. And I feel that they are getting a free pass from too many citizens on too many matters right now. The oil spill is one. Property tax is another, which, again, another show we have to discuss that, because I have so much to say on that. And, several things are wrong. Several things are wrong in this country, not the least of which is the crime situation, which is out of control. And our agencies appear to be runaway horses beyond control of this government. The government has lost control,
Well,
and that's something that I have resigned myself, accepting that they have lost control of what is taking place in this country right now, and citizens are suffering.
I'm very hesitant to agree with you, but to some extent, I can understand why you said that, at least with regards to the crime situation. So I can't refute what you just said, even though I don't want to necessarily be that pessimistic, which is funny coming from me. But I agree with you. We should make some time with regards to property tax. That's one of those things that's on the horizon that a lot of people are worried about privately, but also hopefully with regards to the Coast Guard, I do look forward. I have a bone to pick with the Coast Guard. Hopefully it doesn't get me into any trouble, but I think that deficiency there, that failure there, is critical to a lot of what's going on in the country. So hopefully
that failure by the Coast Guard to man our borders, it's costing us lives, and it's costing us the lives of our children, right? I mean, it pains me, but it's costing us the lives of our children right now in this country. I cannot tell you how many of my contemporaries, people my age, mid-level professionals and so on, are just selling out, packing up, and leaving this country because they do not feel safe to raise their children here anymore. And the brain drain of the 80s, if you thought it was bad, I think it's going to get worse than that as we move forward if something serious doesn't happen in this country to turn the crime situation around, because crime is the number one reason why people are just getting out.
Senator, we do have to end things there, but I will end with this. It's not just the brain drain. In the past, the children were our future leaders. Now it seems as though we have to worry about the children being our future criminals. That's all that we have to look forward to. That's the environment that we have created for them. Hopefully it's not one that persists, and hopefully it's not even true, but time will tell. Senator, thank you for conversing with me this morning.
Thank you again for having me, and we'll continue and pick up where we left off.
Folks, we have to take a break. When we come back, we open the phone lines. You could voice your opinion on anything I or the Senator has said. Stay tuned. This is Talking About on WESN, the Content Capital. We'll be right back.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Hi everyone, this is Wendy Fitzwilliam, and I invite you to Woman Power, a wonderful show celebrating women on International Women's Day, March 8th at Napa. Won't you join me? So looking forward to seeing you there. Tons and tons of amazing, fabulous woman talent. Mwah.
I am the whole blinking market.
The countdown has started for the most entertaining ladies event ever. Get your tickets for Woman Power.
Who won the world, girls? Who won the world, girls?
Under the patron of Senator the Honorable Donna Cox, the network of NGOs is proud to invite you this Friday, March 8th, 7 p.m. at the luxurious Napa Auditorium. Enjoy powerful and talented divas like Nadia Batson, Bonnet Bigfoot, Carol Addison, Nisha B, the Xavier String, Kareen Ashe, and a special guest performance from Neval Chatler. And the host of this esteemed event, the 1998 Miss Universe and still very beautiful Miss Wendy Fitzwilliam.
This girl is on fire.
Tickets for Woman Power this Friday at Napa are $300 reserved and $250 general admission. And they're getting scarce and getting scarce. For more information, call 678-7549 or 491-1802. This is Woman Power.
They go keep their money, I go keep my honey and die with my dignity.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Now is the time. As always, we open up the phone lines. We want to hear from you, the viewer, what you have to say with regards to what we spoke about or things that we haven't gotten into. I have not yet been able to just bring up the fact that our drier than dry season is hitting us hard. There is, of course, a water schedule now. I believe it's for the entire country. And it seems as though the water schedule is basically 24 hours and in some cases 12 hours. That is 1 day a week or half a day a week. Some places will be getting access to water. I haven't checked the entire schedule for the entire country because, to be fair, WASA has given out a very detailed list. I advise that you look it up to find your own location. We have Pitty Valley on the line. Good morning, caller. You on here?
Good morning, Sean.
Morning, morning.
Sean, I want to tell you what I'm going to say is by observing you for quite a while.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Okay.
Sean, you are the most pessimistic person I have seen in a long, long time. The meeting with the Prime Minister where Al-Rari spoke about the app for the police service and stuff, you take that and in a meeting like that, Sean, right? That is a meeting where you press for time. The Prime Minister even told him you have some time, you have much time to speak. So all them pessimistic thing you are going about with what the man said about the app will take police track the time and stuff and you can't get all that information there in that forum where you don't have the time to speak on all those sort of stuff. You get that after probably in the rollout. So not every little thing you look to is where something is really not there. Wait when you roll it out some more and you get all them information. So a forum like that, you cannot get all the information out. So you know that is my point this morning.
Caller, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and there's truth in that. But in this specific example, it is not that hard to modify within the same time frame the message, or that part of the message, to be clear on the issues that I brought up. Because what happens is, right, I understand what you're saying. Unfortunately, an individual is smart. An individual is patient, takes time to think through things. People on a whole, in a group, in the mass, are going to be panicky, judgmental, quick to assume, and oftentimes appear very stupid. Because when you deal with a population on that level, right, and of course you're going to get emotional biases coming through, because to some extent that's kind of how we make judgments. We like to think that we're always going to be objective on everything, but I think there is a scientific study that suggests even on basic things, basic practical decisions like putting on socks, to some extent there's an emotional part of our brain that is part of that decision process, even if it's just a technical, practical matter, right? That helps our brain actually process and make the decision. So I get where you're coming from, and you're not wrong, but in this specific example, it would not have been that hard for the Minister of Local Government not to fall for the obvious pitfall, the obvious trap of his own making, leaving the door open for questions that have serious implications, even if they're unlikely, because, you know, I'm pessimistic. But even I told the opposition senator, I'm not necessarily wanting to agree with you. I just can't find anything to say that you're wrong in that last segment, right? There are going to be people who are way more biased than me. One could argue, am I biased? Am I not? I don't think I'm biased. I think I'm equally biased against everybody, to be honest. I'm cynical for all politicians. So maybe you're right. I am pessimistic. I'm not necessarily biased, right? But there will be biased people out there who are diehard anti-PNM, who are going to take what he said and run with it. And we have seen situations publicly in the past where it doesn't matter what the truth is, you know, at some point, if the perception is strong enough and widespread enough, it will become the reality in the minds of the general public, not just in the minds of the people who have an axe to grind against the PNM. And that's one of the things that I was pointing out today, having to be careful. This is your primary part of the job, right? To communicate. And one of the things I believe that the Minister of Local Government thinks is one of his strengths is his communication skills. And that's why I said, no. It's not that he has communication skills, because that's a technical set of skills. That's more than just speaking. He has speaking skills. He has a charismatic personality. But if he's not careful in other aspects of communication, he may look bad, as he has done in the past, through no need of my interpretation, but objectively, I would argue he has looked bad due to public speaking in the past. He has had many controversies around him, which he was not able to sufficiently address to to ensure the complaints of his detractors and criticisms of his detractors would be blunted. Rather, they are just as effective as they always were. We have San Fernando on the line. Sorry for keeping you waiting. San Fernando, good morning. We're on the air.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
You know, it's the second morning. I wanted, on the heels of the Quarter Company Valley, that same issue with what you highlighted with the local government minister. You know, I listened to that, as I told you, I watched the program. I looked at you folks highlighting it again. The issue with that, what the local government minister said that I have with is the local government minister said that they are launching an app. An app is not, if you launch it, if it's internal in terms of the municipal police tracking their vehicles and stuff, then you don't launch an app for that. That is an internal thing. You launch an app to give it out to people. An app is not something that the municipal police would need willy-nilly. They'll have a system in place to track their vehicles. So that says to me is something for the public to look at. Now, what worries me about that statement is, does anybody call? Do you have a number for the municipal police anywhere, Sean? Because you dial 999 for the public. For the regular police. Do you have a number for the municipal police?
That's a good point. I've never thought in an emergency to call for...
Exactly. Who calls the municipal police? Unless, let me tell you this in San Fernando. The municipal police in San Fernando, from where the municipal police headquarters is, they patrol, I would say, a radius of 2 miles on foot. The municipal police in San Fernando patrols they go around the shopping areas and the San Fernando market and the Marabella market. So they're talking about foot patrols and these mobile units. I want to know, what is this new plan for the municipal police that the minister seems to be gung-ho about? And because as far as I'm concerned, the municipal police, they walk around the shopping districts and they issue tickets for parking and they remove vendors from where vendors not supposed to be. That is what they do. Mm-hmm. So this radical transformation that Minister Alwari is talking about, I am one of those who would like to wait and see, but I am saying I'm not seeing it. Have a good day, Sean.
Thank you, caller. Now, to be fair to the minister, I actually did see where an app could be used internally. Now, like you, I don't necessarily think it's a revolutionary, and it might not even be the best tool for the job. But I can see a world where, because we need to understand, not everything has to fit in a box. You can use an app, and the app will then potentially use the officers' cell phones to track them, right? The problem with that being, how secure is that? Even if it's not meant for the public, it's going to be less secure than a purpose-built system that has specific hardware by which, the authorities could completely control. So I agree with you in the sense that the app is not necessarily the first thing that comes to mind using it that way as an internal system, and it probably is not the best way to do it. And I'll reiterate the point. It doesn't offer an app to track officers, doesn't really offer a new capability. But there's the obvious fact about what he said, being an app that's going to be launched without clarifying. It's hard not to make the assumption it's going to be launched to the public, which is kind of, insane to me to give out that information. But then you brought up another good point with regards to the function of the municipal police. Municipal police are not police, right? They wear the same uniforms, but they don't have the same training, and I do believe they don't have quite the same powers and the same duties and responsibilities. So there are certain things where the municipal police cannot, should not, and probably would not want to be involved in. You'll need the actual police. So to what extent now, and I do wonder if municipal police, and this whole thing about municipal police, because notice, politicians bring up municipal police, right? I wonder if to some extent this is politicians trying to do something about crime, even though it's not really doing anything about the types of crime most people are worried about. Granted, municipal police dealing with these situations like ticketing cars that are parked in various city centers, you know, or urban centers, or wherever the municipal police operate, dealing with parking violations or traffic violations, dealing with illegal vending, so that police officers who should have the training and the mandate to deal with murders and armed robbery and kidnappings, etc., etc., that's fine, right? We don't need everyone with all the capabilities in the world to handle some of the more mundane tasks. And I'm sure that there are a lot of police officers who would prefer, when I say police officers, I mean in general, right? Not TCPS, but municipal SRPs, whatever. People who, they're not necessarily looking to go after drug dealers. They just want to man the streets, be in their community, look out for their neighbors and their fellow citizens, you know, and do the more mundane tasks, because you need someone to look out for the little guy in the day-to-day things, right? And there's value in that. But the way how the minister kind of couched it, I do expect it's internal, despite everything you said, Mr. San Fernando, because my pessimism, you know, notwithstanding, I really hope it's not a public app he's going to launch that's going to reveal the locations of municipal police members. Or maybe he's conceding to the fact that their function is not about crime, but again, traffic violations now would be easier to get away with. You just check the municipal police app, right? There is a roadblock, various social media groups, I'm not a part of any of them, who will warn people about roadblocks so that they could avoid them. Most of the people involved is with regards to trying to avoid traffic. But of course, you just need one member of the criminal fraternity in there so that now all of a sudden the information, you know, is widespread through the criminal networks. So, you know, we wait and see. The problem is even the most optimistic version of this is not necessarily a good thing. We have Shogunas on the line. Good morning, Shogunas. You're on the air.
Hello.
Morning.
What is going on with this property tax? Is it in force at this point in time? Because I haven't gotten any notice, but I know a number of people who got notices.
Mm-hmm. In your area, I assume?
These notices are different. In fact, I know one guy who got 2 notices with different figures for the same property. Mm-hmm. And one of the things the government's supposed to do is publish the role so you can compare yours with others, because one of the grounds of appeal is that you are not properly assessed having regards to so and whatnot. You have any idea what's going on?
Honestly, no. I know I have heard similar things with regards to getting 2 valuations, and usually the higher one is said to be correct, and there's no explanation with regards to why the lower one exists, which is funny and suspicious.
Okay, what are the things? What about the publication of this thing? Karen had promised to publish it in April 2009. Mm-hmm. When it didn't come out, they said they couldn't do it because they was working on reliefs. And then they lost the election. Right? And even when I asked Karen what's going on, she always sidestepped the question of why they changed the property tax from passing central government tax to the regional authority, and instead took away the city and borough tax. Well, if you don't know, thanks for listening.
Yeah. I mean, my guess is there's issues with implementation. Either they don't have enough resources to do all the valuations in a timely manner, you know, not necessarily like all together on the same day, but all within a short time frame, and it's going to be stretched out to some extent. So the process is going to seem kind of long, and people will be questioning, well, what's going on? Why is it taking so long? Although they're not necessarily going to say, why is it taking so long? It's going to seem very weird because we don't know what's going on while they're taking their time to get things done. Or there might be other deficiencies in implementation, and maybe the lower valuations were errors that they want to rectify. Errors in quotation marks for those who are not seeing but listening. But we kind of have to wait and see. I do think it points towards, it might not be the case, but it points towards an implementation issue. We have Claxton on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Caller, good morning.
Morning, Sean. Morning.
Good morning.
Would you rent a house that have no water? Am I just a basic question?
I mean, no, that's, yeah.
Right, but that we're going on with us here, where we live in here. They're telling us the given schedule for water, and we're getting no water. And then they want to charge you property tax on your house. So how you go rent this house without water?
Good point.
We have no water over than 2 weeks, and we call in water until they have schedule.
So not even 1 day for the week?
Valley, but we are on the hill here. Hello?
Not even 1 day for the week you're getting water?
No, we ain't getting, they not, since Digicel going down for the Diwali time, you know, it's go down, they clean up for Diwali time. Since that the water, we not get, we used to get water like 3 times for the week. You know, daylight we get sometime, but we ain't getting nothing. If it do come in night, coming for about an hour, like drip, you can't go up. You can't get a little more water in your tank.
Yeah.
How are we going to shower and wash our clothes and all that? And you have facilities, you're calling water for a little water, they tell you, in a week time. Look, 3 weeks going now, the order for a tank of water we ain't get yet. And we're not share the deal. You understand what I'm saying? How the poor people going to make out champ? All right, Sean, take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Well, some of the articles are reporting that the minister is directing WASA to increase production. This is mainly from the Caroni Arena Dam. Now, I don't know if water from Caroni, somewhat of a central location, because from what I understand, the various water distribution systems or networks, it's not one big water system, right? That we could easily pump water from the northwestern end to the southeastern end and vice versa. So I don't know to what extent that will give relief to South Trinidad, because remember, when Caroni went down, that was when North Trinidad had water problems. When the Salcott goes down, that's when South Trinidad got water problems. This was last year, July and I think August. I think both happened not too far apart from each other, right? There's supposed to be new wells being dug, but that's going to take 2 months according to what the minister said. So, I mean, North Trinidad is basically, it seems to be on a 24-hour per week or 12-hour per week schedule for water right now. It's a bit alarming. To some extent, where I live, I deal with low pressure on a fairly regular basis, but low pressure doesn't mean no pressure. So take that what you will. But yeah, when you consider now what's going on and then property tax on top of that, now to some extent the government needs resources, right, in order to do things and fix things. But the flip side to that is, one, why did it get so bad? And two, what are the excesses that are not being cut that should be cut, right? Across the board, things that we had, all the frills and the bells and whistles, maybe institutions. It's funny, we're in a country where on one hand we have institutions that might have too many employees and their wage bills, their salaries might be too high compared to what it is the country is getting from the service provided. And WASA is one of those that is alleged to be in that situation. The Port of Port of Spain is another entity that is alleged to be in that situation. To some extent, even the union leaders didn't necessarily deny that to be true. I think Michael Anasset even admitted, although he said the problem was politicians use the Port of Spain as a jobs program for people to eat a food, right? And they irresponsibly bloat the numbers, only to then now and tell the union, hey, we need to start to ask people. And of course, the ones granted jobs by the politicians are not going to be the ones that ask. So I can see where the union is like, hold on, we don't want to ask jobs because it's our hardworking people who actually keep the thing running, who you are going to want to ask first. But we also have an issue with the DPP's office not having enough people, customs not having enough people, places being understaffed, important critical places. Or, I mean, I don't know if you will get this in other parts of the world, right? But we literally have too little staffing and too much staffing problems at the same time. It's similar to when we have flooding and water shortage problems at the same time at points throughout the last couple of years. So now this is a drier than dry wet season, although I do wonder if to some extent the authorities with WASA, the minister, etc., should have potentially thought to go on stricter water conversation even earlier, right? We're now in March, to be fair, but maybe it should have happened even earlier. The problem, of course, is people would have complained, but they did warn us it was a drier and drier season. So this was to some extent anticipated. And again, part of reining in excesses is also reining in the excess of the population, and that comes down to leadership. To be fair, Minister Gonzalez is one of the better communicators in the political environment, not just the government. We have Pitty Valley on the line. Good morning. Again, good morning, caller. Welcome back.
Sean, it's me again.
Yes.
Sean, I want to ask you and citizen a question this morning. Just a question.
Yeah.
Any government coming in the next election, whether PNM win, whether UNC win, any government,
yeah,
where and they don't want to pay property tax, they don't want to pay higher wages in electricity, they don't want the dragon deal, where will any government who come into power get the money from to please all the citizens who don't want to pay property tax? When you're paying these things and people complaining about the roads, this, water, you have to be paying taxes for the government to get money to satisfy people's needs. So my question is, any government coming, where they will get the money from to please everybody?
Thank you, caller. That's a reasonable question. Now, the thing about property tax is there are really three sets of complaints. It's not one. It's not all lumped into one. No property tax, you don't want it at all, right? There are those who don't want property tax at all. They don't trust it, they don't like it, they don't want to have to pay it. Then there are those who just don't want property tax right now because cost of living has gone up and wages have not gone up, right? So I understand what you're saying, but we're kind of between a rock and a hard place because you told the various public servants, we can only give you 4%, and the public servants are saying that's not enough. So it kind of does not make sense, right, to then on top of that tax them because they're already saying you're not giving us enough money, right? And on top of you not giving us enough money for us to probably survive in the current cost of living situation, you're going to add on taxes to us, right? I understand. This is why I said we need to compromise things if we want things because money isn't flowing as freely as it used to. So there are those who are saying no to property tax. There are those who are saying no to property tax right now. They're not against property tax in general. And then there are people like me who's kind of in between right now. Maybe it's not the best time. And, well, we need it, like yourself, but we still have concerns with how it's being implemented. Not that it's existing and how it's supposed to exist, we don't want it, but rather, why is it that we have two valuations? As the professor in Shogun has pointed out, he's heard people do that. He himself hasn't gotten any valuations yet. I assume people within his geographic area would have gotten valuations and he hasn't. So he's first of all asking what's up with that. But then the second thing is, this seems to be the basic rule of thumb. If you get two evaluations, you will be told that the higher one, which will probably come second, is the correct one. And then they will take from you the documentation of the lower initial valuation without explanation. And that's what really gets people concerned, because they feel as though they're being scammed. So now it's not about having to pay a property tax so that our communities could afford to maintain, to fix, and to implement things, but rather it feels as though even though you don't own property tax, clerk in whichever office, but you control it. And by controlling it, somehow, potentially, there's corruption in the country. Corruption under the last 3, 4, I don't know, however many administrations, right? No one says that corruption did not exist under any specific administration. It's more or less assumed to be true under all administrations. And people, with that context in mind, look at this property tax situation with little trust left to give. So they don't want to be taken advantage of, especially when it seems as though if you leave holes in the implementation, it leaves room for various individuals to maybe conduct a little funny business here or there. Remember, our government services are not being managed properly. That's why tongue and country apparently ceases to exist at times. That's why government housing could be built on flood-prone or low-level areas. That's why we could have utilities giving people, cooking up people for properties on land that's over things like gas pipes where they should never be built. Therefore, they should never be allowed to hook up. Squatters should never be allowed to hook up, right? Now, in some cases, the hookup is illegal, and in some cases, it seems though it's not. Because things are not being done properly, because we don't hold things to a standard, because no one cares about meritocracy. Sorry, not no one, but not enough. And this is the result. The result is when we leave things with holes, don't be surprised when bad faith actors take advantage of the holes, because we have this laissez-faire mentality, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. Yes, but when you leave loopholes, eventually someone will exploit it in the wrong way, not just use it in a lazy way to bypass bureaucracy and have a little ease up. No, a little ease up then eventually grows into big corruption, right? It just takes time as the various people at various levels get more and more comfortable with taking advantage of the system, because you don't want to be the hard case that's going to enforce the rules, right? But this is not a schoolyard situation anymore. You're not just a prefect or even just a student with your classmates. This is government, this is real life, and this is affecting the lives of people in TNT. I am over time. Make today a good day, as my co-host always says, despite my eternal pessimism, because I guess world history kind of informs me on that. I still believe in TNT. I'll be pessimistic because I don't see people believing in TNT alongside me. Not enough. Make today a good day. Folks, we will see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Purpose-built Naris Martin Public Library. In any modern, diverse society like Trinidad and Tobago in general, but Diego Martin in particular, it is not a simple task to include every individual from different walks of life to a single intervention. But that is the magic of a library.
The National Library and Information System Authority was established for the development and coordination of library and information services in Trinidad and Tobago. We're so excited about our Diego Martin Library, our brand new, spanking, purpose-built Diego Martin Library.
Modern libraries are more than just a space for books. They can be the beating heart at the core of every community, and they act as a portal to knowledge and culture, offering distinctive resources, opportunities, and services.
Libraries bring to the fore almost an egalitarian system that affords everyone even footing when they go to it.
To me, the library is important because it enhances someone's knowledge. Young persons, young adults, children like myself, it gives us a chance to read and understand different things.
Libraries provide a space where the youth of Trinidad and Tobago can interact and share ideas. This government is unwavering in its commitment to invest in libraries nationwide because they are spaces that advance education and literacy. And this commitment directly aligns with the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG 4, which speaks about quality education, and SDG 9, which speaks to industry, innovation, and infrastructure.
So we want people to know that libraries are places where we level the playing field between the rich and the poor. There are a number of persons who do not have internet access at home, and our libraries provide that.
One of the things that is an advantage with our large new library is that the Diego Martin community now has spaces, for instance, the visually impaired space for visually impaired persons. We would now be having more book clubs, separate spaces that they can come in and have fun.
This purpose-built library has been retrofitted to accommodate those in the Diego Martin community with special needs. Investments in institutions like these reinforce our dedication to you today and to building a more sustainable and equitable future for Trinidad and Tobago.
I'm very excited about this new Diego Martin purpose-built library. You have the auditorium, you have the amphitheater, you have the computers, the children's section, the young adult section, the adult section. We're so very excited about it, and we just invite people to come in.
So as we journey forward in our commitment to produce a more creative, innovative and safe society for all, these libraries serve as pillars, nurturing our collective progress.
This was a production of the National Library and Information System Authority and the Office of the Prime Minister, Communications.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That's why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man
is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody, and
the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God. So we kind of have a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's been the victim,
right,
or the man has been the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI. Worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Now you don't need to register nothing. You don't need. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or target of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploiting the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas, and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's. WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Hi everyone, this is Wendy Fitzwilliam and I invite you to Woman Power, a wonderful show celebrating women on International Women's Day, March 8th at Napa. Won't you join me? So looking forward to seeing you there. Tons and tons of amazing, fabulous woman talent. Mwah.
I am the whole blinking market.
The countdown has started for the most entertaining ladies event ever. Get your tickets for Woman Power.
Who run the world, girls? Who run the world, girls?
Under the patron of Senator the Honorable Donna Cox, the network of NGOs is proud to invite you this Friday, March 8th, 7 p.m. at the luxurious Napa Auditorium. Enjoy powerful and talented divas like Nadia Batson, Bonnet Bigfoot, Carol Addison, Nisha B, the Xavier String, Kareen Ashe, and a special guest performance from Neval Chaitla. And the host of this esteemed event, the 1998 Miss Universe and still very beautiful Miss Wendy Fitzwilliam.
This girl is on fire.
Tickets for Woman Power this Friday at Napa are $300 reserved and $250 general admission. And they're getting scared and getting scared. For more information, call 678-7549 or 491-1802. This is Woman Power.
They go keep their money, I go keep my honey and die with my dignity.
sufrimiento en el partido, sí, mucho sufrimiento, demasiado de lo que se pensaba, porque ha sido un partido complicado, no bien jugado, jugado mal, entonces mucho sufrimiento. Hoy, ahora muy feliz, porque llegamos a cuarto de final, como he dicho, estamos mejor que nunca, porque tenemos 7 puntos de ventaja en la liga, en cuarto de final. Si nos decían esto al principio de la temporada, lo habíamos firmado.
We have played them 2 seasons in a row, and I think they are like just getting better. Individual, they are, you know, top players. Both those who are on the pitch, those who are on the bench. But the flexibility, but at the same time the structure they have, collective-wise, is amazing.
Pas contre Marcelino, on joue contre le club de Villarreal, donc on va dire que Marcelino c'est pas une motivation en plus. Nous on veut se qualifier et on doit prendre une bonne option au match aller.